Hello BookTube, it's Louise, Big Head Bookworm. Lovely to see you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a good day wherever it is you are and whatever it is you're doing. Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Louise and this is the Big Head Bookworm channel. I live in the east of England with the husband, who's called the husband, and our 13-year-old lad, who is the best, and 3 cats. Caught you up to date. That's it. That's the most that we're going to do today. Do you like my mug? It's my latest favourite mug. It won't remain my favourite mug, but at the moment it is my favourite mug. It's afternoon whilst I'm recording this. I can just about get away with this light, I think. I think it's just about light enough for me to be recording this afternoon. We are in between 2 storm fronts. We've had Storm Dudley work through. It hasn't done any damage. I just had a bench in the garden that got blown over. Other than that, it's okay. But we have Storm Eunice coming through tomorrow, and that is going to be a stronger, wilder storm for us. And I don't know how the light's going to be tomorrow. So I thought I would record this afternoon. I keep being distracted because there are lots of birds in the garden eating away. All our cats are in, so the birds are having an afternoon treat. So yes, so this is my mid-afternoon fake coffee substitute. I don't like decaf coffee. It's just my taste. I just don't like. I just think you can taste the fact it's decaf coffee. So this is made of chicory and barley. It's a coffee substitute, and I have it with oat milk, and it gives me the satisfaction of a proper cup of coffee, but 0 caffeine, because I cannot cope with caffeine in the afternoon. 12 o'clock, can't do it. So here we are. Do you like my earrings? I got lots of comments about my earrings in my last video. I love a dangly earring. So thank you very much. So I put these on today. I cannot wear big earrings or dangly earrings where I work. I work as a pharmacy technician in the local hospital, and we have very, very strict uniform rules. And one of the things is you can't wear. Ideally, they don't like you to wear earrings at all. If you are going to have to wear earrings, they want you to just wear very small studs. And I like big earrings. So when I'm not at work, I allow myself to wear whatever I want. So I am here today with a video about true crime. If you've been with me any length of time, watched any of my videos any length of time, you know that I like talking. You know, I love my books. I love my books. You know, I love my pussycats. And you know that I like true crime. I read a wide variety of books, but a genre I keep coming back to is true crime. And not only do I read true crime, I watch true crime, and I listen to podcasts about true crime as well. So I am going to show you some books that I have read recently, well, in the last year. Got 2 that I've got currently that I'm really looking forward to reading. Those are my kind of next 2 true crime books as well. One of them you've seen, the other you haven't seen. And then I've got some podcasts as well that you might like if you're interested, because it's always quite interesting to hear what other people are listening to. And I thought, if I tell you what I'm listening to, and the podcasts that I listen to as soon as they come out, I listen to them on my Apple phone, so I know you can get all different kinds of podcast apps. I'd love it if you're into a true crime and you're into a particular podcast. I'd love to hear which one you're into so that I can pick up new favourites as well. So let's jump into the books, no particular order. This was a surprise to me, this one. As I say, no particular order. This was a surprise to me. This was, it is called Manhunt, the Nightstalker by Colin Sutton. And this is the second book. So he wrote, I think it's just called Manhunt. I think it is just called Manhunt. Yes, it is. There is a book called Manhunt, which I have also read, but this was a surprise to me. So I saw it went with a TV series, and I saw it advertised on, as you know, they're doing all the trailers for it, and it had one of my favourite actors in, Martin Clunes, and I thought, this is ringing a bell. I don't know anything about it, but it is ringing a bell. So I'm really interested in watching this. So I did, and I really enjoyed it. If you can really enjoy it, I thought it was beautifully presented, beautifully acted, and there was a real sensitivity to the nature of the crimes. And this is the book that goes along with the series. So it was a 4-part crime series. I don't know, it wasn't a documentary, kind of a reenactment. So it was a 4 parts, and then there was one further episode which was the real Manhunt, where you saw Colin Sutton, and I thought, oh, actually, I think I might give the book a read. And it is about a predator dubbed the Nightstalker, who didn't get an awful lot of press at the time, although I do remember it. And he actually spanned over many years. 17 years his crimes spanned, and it was in London. And the reason it didn't get mass publicity was because of who he targeted. So he wasn't a murderer, he was a serial rapist. And the people that he went for were in their 70s and 80s. So it isn't the usual usual victim profile. Horrific how many he actually affected. And these were people that were, it is that awful nightmarish scenario where they hear somebody downstairs and they can't get out of bed, and they hear about the fact that he's doing this. Now, I remember I must have read something about it at the time, and it started when, I don't know if it tells me when it started. I think he was captured in 2008. I think it's a while since I read it, unfortunately. Which is probably quite good, because it means I'm not going to spoil it if anybody wants to read it. Yes, and so he would do, I'll read you a little bit. He established a clear MO: visit a target at night, remove a window pane and slide in, unscrew the light bulbs, cut the power, rip out the telephone wires, tiptoe to the bedroom, wake the victim by shining a torch in their eyes. What followed was often unspeakable, and it was. And this is the thing about true crime, is that it is that unspeakable things that happen to people, and you know it's true, and it is heartbreaking. It is absolutely heartbreaking. And what is also heartbreaking was there was the most horrific outcry. We should have all known about this all the time, and there should have been so much done to find the culprit. Anyway, Colin Sutton led the manhunt to get him and he did. So it's a bit of a spoiler, but he did get it, and it is such a good book, and I really totally have just utter respect for Colin Sutton. I enjoyed, even though the book is so similar to the series that I watched, it was still worth reading for the detail in there. I hadn't read the previous one, which was called, I'll see if I'll put a picture up of it. I didn't read it because of, is it Levi Belfield is the culprit, which is the one that his first book is about, and I hadn't wanted to read about him because he is vile. And I almost didn't want to bring his energy into my house. I didn't want to. And having read this, I thought, I think I could read it because I respect the police officer so much who did lead the charge and capture him, and I would be interested in his take in it. And I didn't buy it. A friend at work said, who was also a true crime reader, said, I said to her, oh, I've read this, I'll bring it in for you. She said, oh, I've got the first one, I'll bring that one in for you. So we swapped books and I read it. And it's one of those that I would really like to have in my library, my true crime library, because it is, I think I probably would in kind of so many years read again. But it was a really interesting book. And again, I thought it was going to focus so heavily on him, and it did focus on him, but it also focused on who the victims were, and it really spelt out the lengths that the police went to get him and to understand the victims, and the respect that was paid towards the victims. So he actually murdered was it 5? I think he's actually been convicted for, and it is just amazing. And I respect Colin Sutton so much, and I really enjoyed those books. So if you are into true crime and they are modern true crime, then I highly rate them. I highly rate them. And this was the second one, and it didn't spoil it, the fact I read this one first. But the first one is there as well. So the first one's called Manhunt, and then this one's Manhunt, the Nightstalker. There were 2 brilliant ones that I read. So true crime that I haven't read. Oh, tell you what I have read. I did read last year. I have read it before, but I read it again, and it struck me anew what a brilliant book it is. Truman Capote's In Cold Blood. It's easy to be put off by it because you think, well, it happened so long ago, and there's so much more relevant that's out there now. But it is a classic for a reason, and I do recommend it. I really highly recommend that. I read that last year. I read The Killer Across the Table, Inside the Minds of Psychopaths and Predators. This is by John Douglas and Mark Olshaker. I thought I hadn't read the first book, which was Mindhunter, which I had actually read. Of course, if you've been watching the Netflix series, you will understand what Mindhunter. I thought this was actually a really good one. It was about ones that I hadn't heard about. So it's 4 different killers that he investigates. It goes very, very into it goes highly into detail. Is that beautiful English there, Louise? Thank you. I've been working at it. That was very bad. I apologise. Goes into great detail. Thank you very much. There we go. Got there eventually. Goes into great detail to the minds of them, and actually how much they are not going to be rehabilitated. That was something that came out very strongly, that some of these killers were never going to be rehabilitated, and the safest thing for society is that they are not out and they are not able to commit these crimes. I can't remember how long. It's quite a while since I read it, but I can't. But I remember. But that satisfied feeling when he put it down. So that was a good one. I think that's not the latest one by John Douglas. He has, and the latest one's come out, hasn't it? I can't remember the title of it. But I will look to pick that up when it comes out in paperback. I imagine it's hardback now. Book I've read recently, which I don't recommend, Talking with Serial Killers, Sleeping with Psychopaths. I will be getting rid of that, but that was in my my true crime books. Podcasts, because the next book connects with a podcast. So I am a huge fan of, let me find it, The Murder Squad. I'll put a picture of it. So The Murder Squad is one of my favourite true crime podcasts, and it is one that I listen to the day it drops. So it comes out on a Monday, and I will listen to it If it comes out before I get home from work, I quite often download it, either as I'm leaving work or in the car, and will listen to it on my way home. So it's very unusual that it even lasts to the Tuesday. I normally listen to it straight away. They are true crime, but it's about highlighting. So it's Paul Holes and Billy Jensen, and the ethos of the Murder Squad is to almost crowdfund solutions, crowdfund, not in money terms, but to get people to think about crimes that still need solving. So it is about highlighting cases that are current or that have been neglected to be highlighted, putting a different spin on it, giving you more information about it, deep dive into it, and giving you the true crime, the web sleuths, kind of pointing them in different directions to kind of, so it's not the big popular crimes that are being investigated that people know about. It's about getting people to ask questions, and they have helped solve current cases. So the Murder Squad is a fantastic podcast, and I really do enjoy it. Love Paul Holes. He's got a book coming out in April. Yes, I will be trying to get hold of that, and I will be trying to get it in hardback because he's just great. I might ask for that for the birthday. Husband. We all know how I feel about Paul Holes, who was the police forensic investigator who helped solve the Golden State Killer murders. So he is just amazing. And his fellow host is Billy Jensen, and he's a true crime writer. He's done a lot about the Long Island serial killer, and has done, is it Unravelled is another podcast which I haven't listened to, but Billy Jensen has done that about the Long Island serial killer. And he's always, was it True Crime Daily on YouTube? I think it is True Crime Daily. Is it just on YouTube or is it on cable as well? I know I can see it on YouTube. He's about bringing crime to the forefront of people's knowledge, and so looking for solutions, looking for evidence, looking for people to give information about it. This is his book. Have you ever wanted to solve a murder, gather the clues the police overlooked, put together the pieces, identify the subject? So this is it's a fantastic book about how to do that, and how he has been drawn into cases, and how he has contributed to cases being solved. So that is Billy Jensen's book. Highly recommend the podcast, highly recommend that. Other podcasts I recommend. So I recommend West Cork. Everybody's listened to West Cork, but if you haven't listened to it recently, go back. And they're on Apple, is it on the Apple, on your iPhone? Apple Podcasts. There are 13 for West Cork, but there is another episode just under West Cork. So that it didn't come out of the same series, but they did release a 14th episode. So if you haven't listened to that, go and listen to that. And that is about the murder of Sophie de Tuscan de Plantier, who was found murdered on the 23rd of December 1996 in Skull, outside in West Cork. Or was it Torma? I don't know. I think Skull. I'll say it's in Skull, in West Cork, on the west coast of Ireland. And it's an incredibly well-known cold case because of the podcast. Obviously, in Ireland, it was well known anyway. There's been lots of publicity about it over the years, especially because of the main suspect taking people to court to prove his innocence, because he feels that he's been convicted in the papers and by public opinion because of the actions of the police, of the Gardaí, and the newspapers. So that's how he believes his life has been irrevocably damaged because of this, and that he has an international arrest warrant. He has now actually been convicted in France. I'm giving it away, but that's the current state of play. There have been many podcasts about it, but the ones I really like are West Cork. I'm making sure that I get the right one. Crime Analyst, which is by Laura Richards. She did a real deep dive into it, and it is so worth a listen. It's so worth a listen. So it's Crime Analyst by Laura Richards. She's phenomenal anyway. She is part of the Real Crime Profile podcast. She's also a tremendous advocate for understanding what violence against women really is about. And she is a phenomenal voice about understanding that violence against women is violence perpetrated by men, and that we need to reframe it and understand what it is, and before we can do anything about it, and that we shouldn't be complacent. We should be actively doing stuff about this. She's brilliant. So Crime Analyst Full Stop is a brilliant podcast, but her coverage of the Sophie Toscan de Plantier murder is a really interesting deep dive. And in fact, it just made me realise I actually haven't got a book that I need to show you, which I'll get in a minute. So I recommend that. That is very much connected to the Netflix series Sophie, and also the Sky production called Death in the Cottage, Murder in the Cottage, which, whatever it is, I will put up something about it so you can see it. So I think it's Murder at the Cottage, and then there is is a 5-part Sky production. Highly recommend, by Jim Sheridan. I've listened to the audiobook by Michael Sheridan, and I don't know whether they're brothers, but I suspect they are brothers. And I spoke about that previously. That's a really good audiobook. It's How I Hunted and Haunted the West Cork Killer. It's a great listen. It's a long listen. The thing that was different about that, so West Cork gives you a brilliant overview. The two, both the Netflix and the Sky series, give you the visuals. So the West Cork gives you it in its mind, then they get the visuals, and you really begin to understand who Sophie was a lot more, and the devastation and how impactful the loss of her was to her family, and still is to her family. And I thought that was really brilliant. And it gives you the visuals, gives you who they are. You really understand all the people that are involved in a different way, and I think that's really good. The Michael Sheridan book was fascinating because it went very deeply into the court cases and what the police did and what was spoken about, and the legal implications of the court cases that the main suspect took against the newspapers and then against the Gardaí. So it kind of complements it in that way, because I thought, well, maybe I'm just listening to something again which is going to rehash what I already know. But it didn't. It took it from a different perspective. So you've got Crime Analyst from one perspective, which is very much looking at the violence towards women and how the suspect has a history of violence towards women and how it can be viewed. And then the Michael Sheridan book is very much connected to the court cases. And then the other book that I have read about it, I have deep dived, friends, is Murder at Roaringwater. And this is the inside story of the death of Sophie Toscan de Plantier by Nick Foster, who is a journalist. And this is a really good book. Now, this dovetails with the Michael Sheridan book and also the Sky production, Murder at the Cottage, because he is actually in that. You actually see him, and it talks about the filming of it and how they all felt about it. And so it gives you a different view again about how it was put together and how he felt about it and what he went through during that filming and during the years that he was talking to the main suspect, and he was viewed as a supporter of the main suspect. So that's a different, again, it's a different viewpoint. And somewhere in there is the truth. Somewhere there is the truth. And I don't think we will. They are talking now that they are reopening the Irish prosecution are talking about having a new investigation and reopening the investigation to look at it again. And maybe somewhere in there they will find out what the truth was and there will be resolution. But yeah, so that's because, as I can say, I've deep dived into that. So I didn't know if I was going to enjoy this book, but I did. So that's that. Talking about crime analyst. One sec. I'm back. Talking about Crime Analyst, the podcast, she begins it with excuse me, just need to get more comfortable. She begins it with a huge series of episodes about so she doesn't believe that we should call him by the well-known moniker given to him by the press, because she feels it's very disrespectful and it taints how he's viewed. And it's a Yorkshire serial killer. He has a very well-known name, and I'm not going to say it because Laura Richards in the Crime Analyst podcast talks about how you shouldn't. It focusing on the serial killer, focusing on him and who he is, whilst that is vital to understand him, it is incredibly disrespectful to the victims and the surviving families of the victims, and perpetrates some sort of violence against them yet again. So she doesn't use his name, she calls him PS, and she really does a deep dive into who he was and how he could have been caught earlier, and how society failed these women, his victims, over and over again, and the lessons that can be learned. And she's very much like, there's no point doing this if you don't learn the lessons. We need to look at it to learn what the lessons are, and then we can apply them. Now, she can apply them because she is ex-Scotland Yard, she is out there doing it, but it is fascinating for us to kind of see how a professional analyses this. So she's a professional at analysing this, and she talks you through what it is to be one and to view a case. Now, she did this because she'd watched something. It begins with, it's the using his moniker, which begins with R. It was something like that. It was a 4-part series which was on Netflix, which I've seen, and she used that. She watched that, and that stimulated her interest in it again. And she did this deep dive. And one of the books that she read, I actually went and bought, which is called The Hunt for the Wicked Beyond Belief by Michael Bilton. It's quite a wide book. I got so far, and then I struggled with it because of how the victims were spoken about. And I think once you start to become sensitive to how they're described, it's then very hard to look past it. And unfortunately, in this book, which was written in, let me just double check for you. Can I tell when this was written? 2003. a lot of the myths that surrounded it are perpetrated in it. And she did actually acknowledge that. However, she said it is a good book to read. And so it is on my list to go back and read it, but it's a lot to sit and wade through. And perhaps I need a bit of distance away from listening to the podcast. The podcast is like 30 episodes long, and it is at times brutal hearing what. And she says it is real crime and it is painful to listen to, and it is. And so this book is quite hard to read, but if you are interested in that, then this is the book that she recommended and she spoke about. So I've got that. So that's another book that I've got. So I also listened to Real Crime Profile, which Jim Clemente, who's ex-Behavioural Science Unit at the FBI, and Laura Richards, who's ex-Scotland Yard, they look at crimes. They look at all sorts of crimes. They look at the ones that are featured in the media. They look at current ones. They are very passionate. The way they talk about it with each other is fascinating. I've listened to it for years, but I still go back and listen to it very regularly. My other podcast, which I always listen to, always without a doubt, is True Crime Garage. I love it. I love the Captain and the Colonel. So it's known as the Captain, Fat Hands, and Nick is the Colonel. They're the two hosts. They're two blokes that started talking about true crime in their garage whilst drinking a beer. It has now got 540 odd episodes. They do deep dives into some podcasts. They now, I believe, are full-time podcasters. I love the cut of their jib. I love how they talk to each other. They talk about things that are unsolved as well as solved. They've did this long 6-part series into John Benet Ramsey. They did do, I don't think they've done the Golden State Killer, I'm not sure. Criminology does the Golden State Killer, if you're interested in that. They have a spin-off, a kind of another podcast which you can only listen to on the Stitcher app if you're a premium member. And Criminology is the same. Criminology, you can hear all their back episodes on the Stitcher app if you are as obsessed with true crime as I am. So True Crime Garage is my favourite. I adore Murder Squad, but True Crime Garage is just, I love the cut of their jib. I love everything they talk about. I love their attitude. I love their humour. They are fab, and they go to a lot of crime cons. So if you're in America and you get to see them, then I am so envious because I just think they're brilliant. Absolutely love them. No books from them. They do a lot of recommended reading. Nick has a lot of recommended reading that he gives at most end episodes. So they do 1 or 2 a week. So they always come out on a Tuesday, which comes out on a Wednesday here in the UK. And at the end of the episode, he often says what recommended reading is. On their website, True Crime Garage website, there's recommended reading there. So if you are into your true crime, then that is a phenomenal repository of information and suggestions. The book that I am going to read next, which is True Crime, is A Killer by Design, which I've recently bought. And it is Murderers, Mindhunters, and My Quest to Decipher the Criminal Mind. I heard about this on True Crime Garage, so thank you, Nick, for this, because he actually interviewed all but Dr. Burgess, and so I am, ever thankful for him for that. He regularly talks to John Douglas, who ex-behavioural science unit, and so he talks to him, and that's how I heard that John Douglas has got a new book out, because it's just, he is so in there reading it. As he says, I read books, and he does, and I read books, Nick, and I love them too. So he's recommended this book, and so I bought it. There is a true crime book club running with the CrimeCon UK. I'm not going to CrimeCon this year. It's quite, well, for me, it's quite expensive. I don't know. I'm not great about going to those kind of convention-y things. I would be interested, but I don't think so. The only thing that would be really drawing me is that Paul Holes is going to be there this year because of his book. I'm like, fangirl about that, but we're not going to go. I think we're away for that weekend, so I couldn't go in anyway. But they have a book club, which they mention on their Instagram, which is CrimeCon UK. And this is the book for February. Then it's the Murder Investigation Team, How Scotland Yard Really Catches Killers by Stephen Keogh, former detective inspector. So it's again deep dive into investigations and how you look at that. I haven't read it yet. I didn't realise it was going to be a self-published book, which sometimes is great and is sometimes not great. So I shall let you know. This is the second book that has been listed as a for that book club. The first book I loathed, so we'll see how this book goes. If I enjoy it, then I'll continue with the book club. If I don't enjoy it, then I'm going to really pick and choose what I get from them. So that's what I'm going to read in the next month. And there we go, friends. There we go. If you have any suggestions for either podcasts or series or books that have come out in the last year or so that I haven't mentioned that you think I would either really get something out of or that other people that enjoy true crime will get something out of, please leave it down in the comments. That would be brilliant. I personally don't like organised crime books. I don't like ones that are about the mafia, but I know some people do, so even if it's something about like that and not something for me, but other people might like it, she says, flicking herself with her toggle, let us know. So this is way longer than I thought it was going to be. This is going to be a long one this week. You do not need to watch all of this in one go. I recommend breaking it up. If not, why not have me chatting along in the background as you're doing something way more interesting? Downloading some darn good true crime. So, there you go. Those are the books that I've shown you. I'm not showing you the book I didn't like. I'm just going to show you the books I do like. Apart from that, which I haven't read yet. I haven't read these bottom three. So yeah, there we go. An interesting stack of true crime. There are probably other ones that I have read on my Kindle that have, if I don't have them in physical copy, or they are really connected to a case that I am fascinated about, I find it really easy to forget them. When I go back on my Kindle, I look at all the true crime books and I go, oh yeah, I read that one. Oh yeah, I read that one. And it's because I don't see it in my bookcase. I just forget about them. Anyway, that's the way of it, I guess. All right then. Thank you so much. If you managed to get to the end, leave a comment and tell me that you are the best, because you are. This has been a lovely BookTube. Let's do it again. Bye.